Well, it's nice to be here. How is everybody this morning? Y'all good? Okay, great. Is it okay if I'm here in terms of we're filming this? I have to be on good behavior for the camera. Okay, because I think over there is a little bit crowded. So, I want to know who's here in the room. Who's a board member? All right, let us give thanks for our board members who are here. Yay, yay, yay. Who is a hard-working nonprofit fundraiser or executive? All right, let's hear it for our hard-working nonprofit people. Who's both? Who's both? All right. Hooray for the people who do double duty, right? Yes. Well, I'm so glad to be here, and I guess I'll start by telling you a little bit about myself. Let's see if this will work. I wrote a book once upon a time, but I'm not going to do that again because it was way too hard. Does anybody subscribe to my newsletter? I have a newsletter that goes out every Friday morning, very cheerful. And so that's like well known, I guess, around the world. Personal fun fact, I'm getting married in 4 weeks. I'm so excited, my diamond ring is on order. And so anyway, that's a fun fact. I started in the university world at Duke in Carolina. I am a native North Carolinian from the coast. We're all hyperventilating about the hurricane today because so many friends have cottages or family down on the coast. And you know, even 100-mile-an-hour winds, as you know here, can blow down half the trees in town and take off roofs. So it's not pretty. So I've got that lingering in the back of my brain. But today, we're going to have some fun talking about how to rev up board members' energy and enthusiasm for fundraising. Does that sound like a great topic? Mm-hmm. Yes. So I'm going to promise you that these are surefire ways, no kidding, to activate their enthusiasm and help them be more productive and get them interested, excited, and ready to go to work. Are we ready for that? Yeah. And so I've done a lot of, I wish I had majored in psychology, because a lot of, I think, managing and motivating volunteers is psychological. And I'll tell you something we tend to do with our board members. We tend to do all the talking. And we talk at them. And lots of times board meetings are like very formal, and they sit there and they just nod and then they go away. And then you're fretting, the board members are dead, they won't do anything for us. And a lot of it has to do because we do all the talking. And so if you can turn it around and have board members do some of the talking and give them training, that is the way you can activate their enthusiasm. You're not going to create enthusiasm by talking at somebody with these long, boring meetings and boring reports. What do you think? You agree? Yeah, so Psychology 101 here, perhaps. And the whole setup is weird, if you ask me, that my thinking is that nonprofit leaders and fundraisers and executive directors don't get acknowledged very often. You know, they really don't. And when they have a board meeting, it's their chance to shine, you know, and they want to like say all these things that they've done and get acknowledged. And that is a wonderful thing. They need that. However, if the goal of the board meeting is to motivate your board members to take action, you've got to figure out an additional thing to do or some other approach. So it's really interesting to think about, what is the goal of a board meeting? You know, what is the goal? And maybe there are a bunch of goals that you want to try to accomplish in one. I mean, you know, I always say, like if I do a board retreat, I'm working with the CDC Foundation in Atlanta next month. Big all-day board retreat, trying to get the board members moving toward philanthropy as one of their jobs. And I said to the leaders, I said, what are your objectives? Give me a whole set of them, and we'll set up the day to accomplish the objectives. Like if you're having an event, what are your objectives at the event? So let's set it up to make it happen. So with a board meeting, let's talk about what are some of the things we might want to accomplish in a board meeting. Maybe a vote, you know, on something. We want them to understand a couple of points, maybe. We want to get them to sign up to do something in particular, you know. We want them to go away. How do we want board members to go away back out into the community? Fired up. That might be an objective. You know, so you can show up. We might want to have an objective that we want them to enjoy their experience at the meeting. Interesting. We might want to help them get to know each other. Because if they know each other, they can work better together. So it's really interesting to think about this whole thing about what are our goals. And maybe the thing about board meetings, I didn't mean to quite start out right here tackling board meetings, but the board meeting is the principal point of contact between your organization and these individual wonderful people who are volunteering on your board. That's their principal point of contact. So if you're having boring board meetings, what kind of board are you going to have? A board. And is the board going to do this? No. So there are leaders here, there are board leaders here, and there are executive directors here, and staff here. We have more control over the board than we think we do because we can set up the agenda to be more productive. So what do you think? Are y'all on with that theory? Yeah. Have fun too. Rock out. Let's have some fun too. So I want to tell you a story. Way back when I was writing my book, I have a friend named Cece, and she was chair of the board. She's like a social lady. She was chair of the board of the Raleigh Little Theater. Anybody in the arts in here? No? Well, she was chair of the board of the Raleigh Little Theater. And I said, Cece, I'm writing a book. I'm interviewing board members. Tell me what you're doing in fundraising. How's the board related to fundraising? And she said, fundraising? Ugh. She said, I told them I'd be board chair, but I wasn't going to touch fundraising. And she's like really being la-di-da, and she's about to throw up on me, you know? And I say, okay. I backed off real quickly. I said, well, wait a minute, let me ask you a different question. What if you were like the official ambassador from the Raleigh Little Theater to Progress Energy, our big utility in town? And I knew she knew everybody at Progress Energy because her husband was one of the top executives. I said, so what if you were like the ambassador? You didn't have to do any fundraising. All you have to do is like foster a relationship. And she said, oh, now that would be fun. She said, let's see, I could give them free tickets. I could invite them to cast parties. I could give them backstage tours. And she's like brainstorming with me out of the blue about all these fun things that she could do. And then she said to me, I wouldn't mind going along on the solicitation if I'd done all that. You know, this is 60 seconds from one side to the other, and she did the talking. She talked herself into it. All I did was ask a question. So that's an example of if we reframe what we want them to do, and we don't use the F word, we can get them far more excited and get their energy back up. What do you think? What are your impressions of that story? Give me some feedback. What are your impressions? This table, what are your impressions?
Yeah, it was
awesome. Awesome?
Yeah.
Over here?
Empowering.
Empowering? Is it empowering? Mm-hmm. A mind shift? Yeah.
You met the volunteer where they are and showed them a way to participate so they realized it wasn't.
Yeah. I didn't use the word.
You didn't use it and you found their comfort zone.
I didn't use the word should, did I?
It's empowering their own gifting.
Yeah. I met her, you're right, I met her where she was. I like to say that a lot when I'm working with board meetings, that board members, I'm going to meet them just where they are. And because I'm a student of human behavior, and we all ain't pretty, are we? You know, I mean, in terms of what we have going on, and you have to honor that, because you can't push people into a different box if they're a circle, right? Something like that. But thank you for that. And so look, I just told you a story, and I asked you to reflect on it. That is a facilitation technique that you can use with your board. If you give them a report, stop and say, okay, what did y'all think of that? So you see, I'm going to use a lot of facilitation techniques today, and I'm going to point them out to you so that you can walk away with better skills trying to manage a group. And that can be helpful with your families. You know, my children say, Mom, don't do that to us. We know what you're doing, you know. Okay, well, let's get going. We've got 5 stories that we want to teach board members to say, or to ask, or to tell. And here they are. And we're going to unpack them. That's my new favorite verb. Oh, whoa, what happened? And this is going to be our morning. And we're going to work on these stories, okay? The first one is, why do I care about my organization? The second one is, why should someone donate to our organization? I've got a few stories about that one. A killer story about your organization's work. And then, what are we raising money for? What do we need? Very straightforward. And then the last one is a vision thing, full of power and possibility. Wouldn't it be wonderful if? And you talk about a high note, woohoo, end there. So we're going to end there this morning, hopefully. So what do you think? Does this look interesting? Mm-hmm. All right. So let's deal with our first question. Why do we care about our organizations? And so I want everybody in the room to think, why do you care about your organization? Because I'm going to ask you. What would you say if you ran into me in the grocery cart line? and I said, well, how you doing? And you say, I just got back from this amazing experience with blah-de-blah-de organization where I'm a board member. And I'd say, oh, really? Why are you doing that? And what would you say? So, here's our exercise. By the way, board members don't like to do exercises, okay? But they will do education. All right, so we have to, again, we don't want to make board members feel demeaned like they're in the 5th grade. So usually I will introduce this as a messaging exercise. However, it is really an elevator speech practice. Okay? Why do I care? So this is how you set it up. And we're going to do it right here, right now. In a minute, I'm going to ask everybody in the room to stand up and find a partner and share why you care about your organization. And I'm going to yell, then I'm going to yell, and I want you to let your other person tell you why they care. So you get to say and they get to say. You want to introduce yourself too a little bit, right? Because part of the objectives of this mingle is for people to meet each other, right? Always good. So you're going to stand up, find a partner, introduce yourself, and share why you care. And then I'm going to yell loudly into the mic, and I'm going to say, change partners. And then you find somebody else, and you have the same conversation. And then I'm going to change partners. We're going to do it maybe 4 times. 4 times if you're having fun. We'll see if you're having fun or not. And while you're doing this, I want you to pay attention to what are you saying. You might want to remember the final version. It could come in handy. You might want to write down the final version because it's going to give you a chance to evolve it. And I want you to pay attention. How are you impacted by what other people are saying? Particularly if your board members are doing this, how would they be? They want to pay attention to how they're impacted by other board members sharing the passion for why they care. And then is it easy or difficult to do this? Is it miserable or is it fun? Introverts, I know who you are. I feel your pain in this exercise. But guess what? I want to tell you something. Introverts make some of the best fundraisers ever. Why is that? They don't do the talking. They bring their donors out. So introverts, grit your teeth through this exercise and see if you can enjoy it. And know that you've got secret skills that many of us extroverts don't have. And then the last thing this is the most important of all, I want you to pay attention to what happens to the energy in the room when you're having this conversation. So backing up, I left out one thing here. I'm only going to give you 30 seconds each to be able to have your little mini conversations. So with 30 seconds, it means that you have to really be succinct. And that's why you get to practice this 3 or 4 times to see what's going to come out of your mouth when you talk about why you care. Who's a talker in the room? All right, so y'all, I want y'all to have your little angel sitting on your shoulder. And what happens if you do all the talking for your 30 seconds and your friend's 30 seconds? your new friend is not going to like you very much. Key fundraising lesson. Key fundraising lesson, know when to shut up. Right? So you can see that this mingle exercise has so many objectives. It is a team building exercise for your board. It fosters personal relationships for them to get to know each other. It starts a conversation at a very deep heart level that they have probably not shared. So it's an empowering exercise from a very heartfelt place, and wouldn't we love to have our board members there all the time, right? I did some studying about trying to create action and fundraising or motivate anybody to do something, and apparently emotion inspires action, data inspires logic or discussion or, analysis. So if you think about it, it's emotion. You think about who studied Julius Caesar or Shakespeare's play. When who is it that's giving the if you think about any politician who's trying to rabble-rouse a crowd is using emotion. Not the best nonprofit fundraising letters are emotional. And if you want to inspire anybody to take action, you got to get them in their heart, and that makes them want to give. I'm getting all these emails: give now, give now, give now. And of course, Dorian is hanging off North Carolina shore, South Carolina shore, and we can have a talk about disaster fundraising too, and how that might affect you later on. So, what do you think? Would this be an interesting exercise? So, let's experience it. So, in just a second, everybody up, find a partner, share why you care, don't change partners till I say change partners, and then you'll have a chance to do it 3 or 4 times. So everybody up, find a partner. What was your experience like doing this exercise?
Awesome.
Awesome? Awesome? Yeah. It's pretty amazing, isn't it? Let me hear from some people, like personal. What was your experience like? Yeah.
The first time I was very nervous and kind of ironed out what I was going to say, and by the very end, I felt like I had a pretty good
Yeah.
pitch.
It's nice to practice it, isn't it?
Yes.
Somebody else, what was your experience like?
I was more conversation on the second or third.
Very good.
Right.
Very good. Who interacted with their partner? Conversed as opposed to blathered. Yeah. Good, 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 good. See, y'all are advanced all over already. Yeah.
So did not want to do that when you started that. But it was great, and I loved it, and I just hated that you stopped it.
How was it interesting?
Because I learned so many different things, so many different,
It's pretty cool, isn't it, when nonprofit people talk to each other? We should do this more often.
There's lots of cool nonprofits out there that you don't even think about that that's a thing.
And my favorite is, I'm from Montgomery. Oh, I'm from Montgomery too. We
Yeah.
didn't even know it.
Yeah. How about over here? Yeah.
It was great to see other organizations that are connected or affiliated to ours, or that in talking to one gentleman, how his organization just has a similar objective to ours.
Wow,
So
yeah.
just kind of making connections like that and seeing how we're all working.
Did anybody find an opportunity for collaboration?
Yes.
Yeah. Isn't that nice? Because that means we can all be more efficient, more effective, carrying out our mission. Cool. Somebody else, what was it like? In the back room, in the back of the room, what was it like?
I thought it was interesting when I talked to 2 different people from the same organization.
Uh-huh.
What they said was a little bit different,
Mhm.
and I started to notice that depending on who I was talking to, I might say something a little bit different, but it made it seem so much more genuine, that it wasn't just a practice this in the mirror robotic speech.
Mhm.
It was practicing just being genuine, having conversation, and your conversation being about what you love.
Yeah. Was it easy or difficult?
I'm a huge extrovert, so this is super easy.
Usually people don't mind talking about themselves, Like I might forget my 3 main mission points for my organization, my messaging, but I'm not going to forget why I personally believe in what I'm doing. Because that comes from me. And it may come out differently, but it's always there.
It's all, if you're passionate
Yeah.
And if you've got a personal experience with it, which is a lot of the reason why some people get on boards is because they've experienced that.
Yeah, they have a
Know it.
connection, personal connection. Board members don't get a chance to talk about it, do they? They really don't. How about the energy in the room? Where did it go? Up, up, up. I mean, I do so many workshops and training. I always start with this, always. And especially with the board retreat, one reason I like to do it with the beginning of a board retreat is that it shifts the board members from being fifth grade passive, sitting back and letting somebody else do it, to all of a sudden they are active, they're out of their seats talking. And the energy goes up. And then when you sit them back down for whatever business you need to do, they're in a completely different place. So this objective, in my mind, as a facilitator, has this exercise has multiple objectives. And what would it be like for your board members to have this team building experience, huh? Pretty cool? You know, different kinds of formats. And so you can do this with a committee meeting, you know, with a board meeting, a board retreat. Lots of different ways to approach it. And I have a friend who worked for a hospice in Wilmington, North Carolina, and she posed the question once, what legacy do you want to leave from serving on this board? Ooh, that's a higher level one, isn't it? So she said it was the best board meeting she'd had in 3 years when she asked that question. But one of the reasons I like this question, and this is a real important fundraising point, we're talking more about the why than the what. And so y'all were talking about why I care, right? And why my organization is in existence. Did anybody start out talking about, like, this is what we do? And then you evolved, maybe? You evolved into something different? A story, maybe? We're doing storytelling. This is our personal story. And so when you are writing your fundraising appeal letters, and you will be writing them soon, I'm sure if you haven't already been starting to work on your campaign for the fall, why our work is important. You got to live there in your appeal letter and not so much about what we do. You know, very different point of view in a letter. And why don't you even try writing 2 letters? One letter's all about the why and another letter's all about the what, and see which one seems to have more impact. You know, it's one thing to talk about, we've got this award, and we're serving 20,000 people, and we're doing this, and that's all well and good, but the thing is, why is it important to serve 20,000 kids? What kind of opportunities are you giving your kids when they get served? Allows them to do blankety, blankety, blank, to go up to be blankety, blankety, blank. That's what the donor wants to see. Not so much about the fact that you're serving 20,000 people. You see the difference? So this is a great messaging exercise, and the next step in this is have your board members share, what did you hear that really resonated in the room? So let me just hear from y'all. What did you hear from somebody that really resonated with you? Anybody hear anything that really resonated? Think back. Yeah.
When I spoke to this gentleman, Michael.
Can't hear you.
When I spoke with Michael, he was talking about helping the youth,
Yeah.
keeping them out of gangs or selling drugs.
Yeah.
To lead them over into business.
Yeah.
That's what resonated with me. And I thank you for that.
Thank you.
Wow. Who's your organ?
Can I follow up? I just want to talk about Michelle now.
What did you hear from her that really resonated?
So Michelle has started a foundation, and I love when people start foundations because they've experienced.
Oh.
And that's what Michelle did. Michelle's a cancer survivor, a stage 4 cancer survivor, and she's started a foundation to help people who are going through something that she went through that need bills paid. And
Need bills paid. You better believe it. Yeah. Yeah. And family needs help too. Yeah.
I mean, to me, that's just
It's very
that's a
powerful.
selfless
Very
act.
powerful. I mean, the work we do is so full of heart, you know, and our poor board members are up there off here somewhere, you know, and they don't have a chance to really connect. Somebody else, what did you hear that really resonated from your colleagues?
I learned that the YWCA helps young women with domestic abuse and payday loans and children's care. Like, we learned a myriad of things that they do, not just one thing. So.
Oh, wow. Wow. Yeah. What would it be like if your board members had this discussion about your case for support in your work? Pretty powerful to be sharing, you know? And when I'm doing a board retreat and I ask them to talk about what they heard in the room that really resonated, the things that your board members are coming out with, this is such good case for support material. I tell the fundraising staff, write down everything you hear and that's your next appeal letter. Because the board members are living in the why, and they don't have too much information. They're up there at 30,000 feet. They can talk about with passion why your cause is important, you know. So they can do this better than staffers can, because staffers are down here in the weeds with too much information. My children taught me the definition of TMI. Too much information, Mom. Okay. So, anybody want to write down your why I care story real quickly so you don't forget it? Don't forget it? Okay. All right. Great. Great. So I want to talk a little bit about the nature of enthusiasm. And one of the things that we're trying to train our board members is to be enthusiastic, right? When they're talking about being ambassadors for us. And so how were y'all being when you were sharing your stories? How were you being? Let's make a list.
We were advocating for.
You were what?
You were advocating for.
You were advocating? What else? How were you being? Passionate. Energetic. Sincere. Informative.
Because that was something I learned.
Yeah.
I had no idea this kind of thing exists, you know.
Yeah. Powerful. And persuasive.
You're sounding an alarm about something that is a cause that people may not be aware of.
Yeah.
You're heightening the awareness.
Yeah. You know, in a way, it's sort of like white light. You know, like we're just, this is stuff. This is big stuff, and we're being powerful about it. Somebody said powerful, and so this is the kind of energy that changes worlds. It's this big stuff, and you know, Maslow's hierarchy of needs or whatever it is. You know, people who are enthusiastic, excited and personable and authentic and sincere. You want to spend time with them. Yeah, they're. I want to spend Friday night with them. You know, people who are on fire. You know, all up. As long as they're not so big, they're taking over the room. Let me tell you a little story about energy. I do so much training that I really think a lot about energy. Energy in the room. I mean, I'm more interested in managing the energy in the room here than maybe what y'all are learning. So board members have this energy too, and they have cultures. So everybody is a certain way. I've done a lot of studying on organizational cultures, and the definition apparently is the way we are being when we're together. So you can be a spark plug. A little spark plug. I have a couple of boyfriend stories. These are old boyfriends. They didn't make it to the altar. And I have this boyfriend named Joe, and he's a great guy. He's an attorney, and he was head of the student body at Carolina when I was there, and he thinks he was a king in at least one former life. He just has this just happy, sunshiny energy. And so we were traveling in Toronto, and he wanted to go into the Four Seasons Hotel to have a drink at the bar Friday night at 6 o'clock, you know, and it was a little bit intimidating, you know, a very swanky place. And he said, Gail, this is a true story. He said, Gail, let's walk in there and make everybody in the room stop talking and look at us and wonder who we are. And I said, what? He said, come on, let's see if we can do it. And I said, you first, buddy. And so he strode into the room like, you know, and I did my best to muster some level of dignity, you know, to follow him. And we sat down, and I said, Joe, everybody's looking at us and nobody's talking. And, you know, he leaned, you know how these lawyers lean back. He said, I told you so. And, you know, I'm such an incorrigible fundraiser. The first thing I thought was fundraising lesson, fundraising lesson. How do you do that? You can't touch it, but you can see it and feel it. And I guess it has to do with presence. Is that that's what it is? You know, I guess when you're walking into a courtroom, he wanted to like take over the room when you walk in and shift the energy. So just an idea about this energy stuff. And when you're thinking about your board meetings, what can you do to manage the energy so that it, and I've also studied that energy states are contagious among small groups of people. Who's got a teenager who's like a wet blanket? Whoop. Or a staffer or a board member? Whoop. when they come in. You know, and you know, all the more reason for you to be the person that everybody can feed off your energy. And I tell you, it matters. It matters because if you're who tries to do events and galas and all this stuff that drives you crazy? If you don't have like the energy for this thing, where's that event going to go? You're right. So your smile, quite frankly, you know, is a pretty good tool. You know, in the South, we can get away with so much with a smile on our face. We're all very practiced at that, aren't we? You know, people up north, they're very enchanted when I tell them Southern stories. But actually, well, they really like me in Canada because they think the Canadian way is more like the American South. And you have to say the American South, which is really weird. Anyway, so this whole thing about enthusiasm, this is part of teaching your board members storytelling, is you got to drive home the point about how they are being. And so you can even share with them my boyfriend's story if you want to, or if you have a story. You notice I am telling little tiny stories. I started out with a story about Cece, my friend who was the board chair. I've got a boyfriend story. I pull the boyfriend story out when people's energy is starting to drop, although yours wasn't because it fit into the, but it's always good to have a story that will make people put down their phones no matter what. And lots of times a personal one will do that, you know. So see, I'm training you to be a speaker and a workshop leader now, right? Train the trainers. But don't forget the power of enthusiasm. And that is a skill to teach your board members when they are telling their story, that they tell it with a smile on their face. You know, because the problem of fundraising is hanging out there scares them to death. And so I love the idea of training board members to be sneezers. Because remember, viral marketing, when things go viral, there's this whole concept of the idea virus. And it's contagious. You know, when Paul Revere went out to spread the word, he was a well-known, enthusiastic guy, and when he sneezed, it caught on fire. Apparently another person went out in the other direction, and they were not well-known, enthusiastic, and their message went flat. Has anybody read that story? Really interesting. So anybody in health, sneezers, the health people don't like it when I talk about viral messaging, you know. But the thing is, if your board members should be able to sneeze an enthusiastic message about your organization no matter what. And I tell board members their number one job is to be a sneezer. You think they can do that? So maybe that's the first thing we train them to do, is how to sneeze a cheerful message. Remember I said cheerful and message. Two parts of the same thing. We did we worked on our message, and then we talked about how we are being when we are talking about the message. So what are your impressions of this first question, first story we're teaching? Good. Over here, what?
Very informative, and while you're sitting here talking about this, I was doing more of the what we do and not the why we do it, because it's just what I've done for so long. So I see, I mean, it's just,
You want to practice it again?
There's so much more to the why we do it than there is to the what we do it.
I think it's more interesting too.
It is, yeah.
Good. Good. You want to practice it again? We do the why? No. Somebody else, what were your impressions? What were your impressions of this first story? We can reflect. Turn to the person next to you and share your impressions of how you might use it or your takeaways from it. Turn to the person next to you. So what were you talking about? What were you talking about with your colleagues? Yeah. Or you were just eating popcorn? That's okay.
I was just saying that we do a lot of different things at our organization, and so one board member might be really passionate about the businesses that we work with, and another one might be passionate about the at-risk young adults that we work with.
Love it.
So if I had scripted something for them, it might not really fit, and then they wouldn't have that passion for their story.
Bingo. Great insight. Great insight. Somebody else, what were you talking about with your colleagues?
I just said I thought it would be a great idea to go back to the board and poll the board. Why are you on this board? You know,
Yeah.
why did you choose to be a part of this?
Yeah.
And hear their story. Because I don't really know the answer to that, why that some of the people that are on our board, why they are on it.
And you know, people's stories are really interesting.
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
I have more of a question. So if you, obviously we all have boards that are comprised of different people. Some are more business oriented.
Right.
And that's their gifting. Some who are more passionately connected to the cause itself. But how do you tailor, so a lot of them are coming in with an expectation where they served on another board and they think it's gonna be very and their expectations is it's gonna be business like and we're gonna get out in an hour and 15 minutes.
Yeah.
And then you have those who are okay with sitting around and hearing a story and getting their heartstrings tired.
Right.
You know, so how do you find that middle ground where you're touching all of them?
That's a great question, and it might have to do with the agenda. Maybe you're going to have 15 minutes of every agenda to do some storytelling or to practice a skill. And that maybe you have an executive committee that's going to bless the idea of taking part of every board meeting to do some deeper work. And the thing is, there's got to be an objective. Why are we doing this? We want to do this so that we can equip our board members to be sneezers in the community. You know, so I think it's very important for business people to understand why they're doing it. And you know, studies show that board members do want fundraising training, but they want it to be practical and not theoretical. And so this is really practical training on what do we say when we have a chance to talk about our cause in the community. And you know, are you a staffer? Are you ED?
I'm a little of everything.
Bless your heart.
I'm the executive director.
Right. And it might be good for you to get a couple of people along with you. You don't want to be hanging out there by yourself when you're trying to create change. Build your informal coalition ahead of time, you know. And the way you do that is say, you know, I had a couple of interesting ideas that came up at this workshop and I'd love to bounce them off of you, you know. Rather than rushing up to the board members saying, we got to do this, we got to do this, we got to do that. There's a difference. You see the difference? When my daughter was 13, she's always been a powerhouse, bless her heart, and she would come at me, wham, and what would I do? I'd put my roadblocks up. But if she'd say, Mama, I got an idea, I want you to see what you think of it, my defenses are down. So this is like a managing up strategy you can use not only with your children and your spouses and partners, but you can use with your board and everybody in your life. Now, I want to point out a couple of facilitation techniques that I just did earlier. Turn to the person next to you and discuss your impressions of what we just talked about. Is a great thing to do. You can use it any time in a group. And if I'm, you know, we do a lot of consulting and capital campaigns. If I'm delivering a feasibility study report to a board, it's got a lot of bombshell information that they really need to understand and chew on. And I don't want the real meeting to happen in the parking lot. After the event, after this presentation, I want to give them a chance to talk about it in the room. And so I'll say turn to the person next to you and share your impressions of this particular point. So why is that a good thing to do, everybody? I'm sorry? They're going to stay passive, letting you do the talking until you force them to talk. And when they're thinking about it and sharing about their ideas with a neighbor, it lands more deeply. And that's what I was doing with y'all. I wanted this to land more deeply. I want you to think about how you might use this. So the whole idea of reflecting on something is very useful. Sometimes I feel like I'm living my life at 110 miles an hour and I never have time to digest what's going on. You know, but to be forced in a situation to reflect, very helpful. So that was one facilitation technique, turn to the person next to you. You can also do that with 3 people in a small group. And then you can also ask y'all, what were your impressions of what we just talked about? And I received some comments here too, asking people to reflect. So useful skills when you're trying to teach board members or train or evoke or whatever we're trying to do, cajole, motivate, lead, to take action. And does anybody love this quote from Maya Angelou? Okay, so look, who's been stuck in a conversation lately that you couldn't escape. You do not want your donor to feel that when you show up. And lots of times board members think their job is to pitch. And they want a presentation that can pick somebody up and throw them on the floor. Who has board members like that? Yeah, yeah. And so reminding them about the conversation and getting trapped is that's the little story that you can ask them to remember. You don't want because board members sometimes, I'm no kidding, board members will rush up. They'll feel empowered and trained, and they'll rush up and they'll blurt out an ask with no preparation, no warm-up. They don't even ask the donor for permission to have they just ask. This happens because board members are well-meaning and they think that's what their job is when they learn about fundraising. So all the more reason to really be careful when you start empowering board members that they need to know that they do not rush up and ask anybody ever. Okay, that's part of the ground rules of fundraising. Do they want somebody to rush up to them and ask them for $50,000 out of the blue? You think that's going to go very far? That's not going to go very far. No. So the thing about this money stuff, the thing about rushing to the ask, and remember I mentioned that fundraising is this scary little thing hanging over the head, that if board members think the purpose of sneezing is to do fundraising, where is their energy going to be? Right down the kitchen sink. And we were just talking about having this beautiful white light energy, weren't we? So that's why I go back to the idea of energy, that if they think this is about fundraising, you're dead. So I take fundraising completely off the table and say nobody is going to do any soliciting unless they want to and unless they're carefully prepared. So your job, board members, is not to solicit. Your job is to do these other things. Open doors, be a sneezer, blah, 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 whatever you can figure out would be appropriate. Are you okay with that strategy? Because some people are not okay. If board members are selling tickets, that's one thing. Or getting sponsorships, that's one thing. But anything bigger than $5,000, they're grind rules. Are y'all okay with that strategy? Yeah. Yeah, board members think fundraising is asking for money. And I don't care how hard we try to change their minds, they think it's asking for money. They don't understand the strategy, the thought, the prep, the analysis, and the deliberation, the deliberateness of everything, or the professional training. And this is the dark side of fundraising when it's all about money. I have been part of solicitations that I did when I was early on that I felt so yucky about. I'll tell you a quick story. It's not about money. I'll tell you, where's the next one? Okay, it's about the donor and their relationship. Wait a minute, I got to tell you there. I'll go back to these other two slides. But I want to tell you my Y story. I was working at the Y all the time. I'd get a phone call all the time from Monty. And he had my name on a list, and he was a board member. He would call me for my gift, my annual gift, and I was thrilled to make it. Here's my $100. So glad to help the Y. Every year, boom, 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 boom. That's the kind of asking board members are great at for the annual fund gifts. We're fine with that. But one year, Monty called me up, and he must have been having a bad day, and he said, Gail, can we count on that $100 again? And I didn't want to, sure, but that's not what I wanted to do. I wanted to support the Y. I didn't want to give him $100. You see the difference? Mm-hmm. And it took me a long time to send it in, because that was back in the days of mail and checks. It took me a long time, and I watched myself and how I felt about it. And so then next year I go to my yoga class, and there's Julie, the ethereal yoga teacher. She's barely touching ground, and she says, class, the Y is having its We Build People campaign, and we're sending kids to camp. And she's all aglow and happy. And she said, when kids go to camp, they do this, they do this, they do this. And we're all thinking, kids to camp, kids to camp. How wonderful, how wonderful. And then she says, I want our class to send kids to camp. Are y'all in? And we're like running to our wallets. This is back when we had money in our wallets, you know. We're running to our wallets to throw money at kids to camp. And it was the same ask. Same ask. Can we count on that $100 again? Or you want to send kids to camp? So this, I think, is if you're going to train board members to help them get inspired about helping in fundraising, you got to drive home some of these ideas. And I just told another story. And if you can find some stories to tell, they will remember the point you're making. You're not going to forget my boyfriend's story of walking into the bar. You know, you're not going to forget the idea of being trapped in a conversation that you can't escape. You know, you may or may not remember Julie and the money, but see what I'm doing in my methodology? I'm embedding ideas in little tiny anecdotes. So I've done a lot of studying of public speakers, and Martin Luther King is the best one ever, because everything he said was a metaphor. Justice running down like river. You know, little kids waking up, blah, blah, blah. I mean, so I don't know if we can ever aspire to that level, but you can probably do a better job. Talking in dry data is just not as powerful. And people don't remember it. People don't remember it. So let me go back. The thing about this, and I'm going to ask y'all to have this conversation first before I unpack it. So turn to the person next to you and share with them how you feel about the idea of soliciting money. Soliciting money. How do you feel about that? All right, okay, I'm gonna stop you. You. So we got some energy going on in the room, huh? Got some energy? Okay, so how do we feel about soliciting money? Feels yucky, doesn't it? I mean, my redhead friend over there, he's like, he's going to set the world on fire, and it doesn't scare him. But you're an anomaly, bless your heart. You're an anomaly. But no, the idea of soliciting for money is gross. It's gross. Now, turn to the person next to you and share, how did you feel the last time you made a gift to your favorite cause? Turn to the person next. How did you feel? Delighted. Wow. A delighted donor. An energized donor. Included. Yeah. Useful and purposeful. Ooh, love these words. Write these down right now. Okay, now I'm serious. Let's hear some more words. I want to get these down.
I was talking, but sorry. Go ahead.
Yeah, go.
Oh, I was talking, so I don't know if anybody said this yet or not, but like impactful.
Impactful. Okay, yeah.
Feel blessed that I'm able to give.
You're proud that you're able to give?
Feel that I'm blessed.
You're blessed. She's blessed that she's able to give. Yeah, in the back.
I felt very connected.
Connected.
To an organization that had personally served me.
Oh, wow. Yes. So, can you imagine getting donors to do like a 15-minute video about why they believe in giving and to say these words? Do you think that's a powerful message? I mean, Bill and I are planning our honeymoon right now. Yay! And we were trying to find a swanky hotel in London. So excited. And so we went, where'd we go? TripAdvisor. What's it really like? And I was thinking, these peer recommendations. And I'm thinking that I think that may be the next big thing in or ought to be the next big thing in fundraising, is for donors to talk about why they're giving. NPR is really big in Chapel Hill, and now 50% of their annual fund is made up of those monthly sustainers. And when they're doing their fund drive, they have like these little 10 or 15-second messages from the sustainers about why they do it, more powerful than anything the staff could ever say. And another idea I'm working on is that donors will bring you more new donors faster than board members will. And we forget that. We forget that our donors, our die-hard, committed, delighted, connected, true believer donors will bring everybody they know to our parties, to our events, to our campaigns. And they'll share it on Facebook, they'll do peer-to-peer, they'll do everything. Will your board members do that? They're embarrassed. They're embarrassed because they think they're supposed to do it, I think. Hopefully your board members will do it too, but they've got to get as engaged and connected as your big donors are. So, you know, a lot of what we're seeing in fundraising today is that you can raise more money with fewer donors. The reason is if you can find your true believers and build relationships with them, they'll do everything in the world for you, and they'll give and give and give and give, including estate gifts. And I know it doesn't sound intuitive. Who's got a board that says, we need new donors? We need younger donors. You know, I fish where the fish are. Okay, I'm trying to feed hungry children today. I love my millennials. I love them, and I want to keep them engaged. But the boomers give 3 times more per gift than the younger donors do, and that's a fact. And I got to fish where the fish are. We got a goal to reach. We can still have engaging programs for the younger people, because studies show that millennials and younger people do have more money to give, and they're more socially conscious. So there's a lot of latent energy there that's not tapped. But my specialty is major gifts, and the major gifts come, you know, I'm at the stage of my life. I've educated my children. I have paid for their frigging weddings. You know, I have done the thing I'm doing, and they're done, you know, and now I can devote myself, whatever I have left, to building a retirement and leaving a legacy. And this is the stage of life, the circle of life, you know. It's just fine. My daughter wants me to build a college education fund for my grandchild, but I want to give it to my girls' school, you know. So anyway, but you know, donors have conversations about what they want to do with their legacy. So this whole thing about true believers, I'd like for you to write that one down too, that the purpose of fundraising is to find your true believers. And one of the things, we had an interesting conversation earlier about how data can be used. This is a little bit advanced topic, but it's really interesting how you can use data to find your true believers. If you can figure out how to send a survey, email survey to your donors, and it just has a little series of boxes. How committed are you to this organization on a scale of 1 to 10? And just let them check that box. I mean, you might do some other stuff with email too, but that's the thing. You're asking their opinion. And if you can find, people will tell you. And if you can define those people in the 7, 8, 9, 10 range, those are your true believers. And they'll probably do anything in the world for you. So the whole idea of evaluating donor commitment with donor surveys is one of the latest things in fundraising today, and it takes data, and it takes technology, but it's not impossible to do. Isn't that interesting?
How many questions would you say?
3.
'Cause I get surveys from doctors' offices.
You know, yeah, I mean, we're getting surveys from everybody. The hotel I stayed in last night is going to send me a survey. How often are nonprofits surveying their donors? No. How was our website? How easy was our donation process? You know?
So I did one yesterday at a physical therapy office, and it was 10 questions, and I just exited after 3.
Yeah. Well, maybe were they trying to get feedback on their
Trying
experience?
to get feedback, I think both, but I was like,
Yeah.
I want to do this.
Yeah. Well, you know, the thing is that I think more than 3 questions is not a good idea.
3 is gold.
But the whole idea of the survey stuff is a new methodology. And I think everybody's still figuring it out, which is why it's still cutting edge. But all I know is, I tell you what, I signed up for a new service for AT&T, and you know what, I got this mailing from them, and you know what it said? Won't believe this. We can't thank you enough. And I thought, I've never gotten a thank you letter that says that from a gift I've made. we can't thank you enough. Isn't that interesting? But I'm diverging. So, important, if you're going to, the whole goal, what we're doing here this morning is how do we get our board members set up to take action for us in the community? And it's important to drive home the point between the whole idea of money versus love for the cause, right? So, let's take a quick break. Let's take a 10-minute break, okay? And we'll come back at, one time I was presenting and somebody raised her hand in the back of the room and she said, I know the person second from the left.
Can I ask real quick, where do you get your slides? What do you use?
I look all over. And I have somebody now who helps me design stuff and I make them look. But some of these are old pictures that I'm not going to give up because this is just too good. It's too good. I have this theory about why serving on nonprofit boards is like being in middle school. Would y'all like to know my theory? My theory, and I've served on 25 boards, okay? My theory is that your number one motivation as a board member is to be accepted in the group. Not to be provocative, not to be a leader, but to be a member of the group, a club. It's like a social club. That's why if your board doesn't enforce term limits, you are very much in danger of sliding into a we own this organization mindset, which is very dangerous because you're not going to have new ideas. And so the proper thing is to do, oh my gosh, we're not enforcing our bylaws, exclamation point, exclamation point. And board members are more liable to want to be nice to each other because they're all in the same group, and we don't want to let him roll off the board because he wants to stay. You want to be nice to each other, and that's because the power of the group mentality. And so you've got to be aware that group process is alive and well on nonprofit boards. We talked about energy being catching. I talked about culture, habits. I want to tell you that I have recruited new board members to come in like a team of 4 new board members, and I have sat them down and I've said, this is your job. We need change here, here, and here, and I'm hoping you'll help us push it. And people will take that on if you ask them. But if you don't ask them, they're going to be just right along. They're not going to say anything. So it's really interesting how you can empower people if you ask them to please take a role. And so, this is the board meetings sometimes. We're talking about boring board meetings, I love this picture too. I'm not going to give this picture up. And then, we talked about fundraising being the F word. You mentioned, is the deer, y'all have deer down here? It's like the deer in headlights. Look, you want me to do what? Ah! You mentioned fundraising, you might have this going on. No. And so I'm just acknowledging reality. So that's why the storytelling stuff and sneezing is not about fundraising. But it still starts to get your board members active in an area where you need them to be active in. They think fundraising is this, it's begging. Don't let them get away with this. They think, they're making up all these things about money. Oh, I can't do that, They think they're begging, like, oh, does anybody imagine board members, oh, please help us, please help us? That's not very empowering, is it? Rejection, they're thinking that. They're thinking cold calls. Lots of times board members have got these ideas about what fundraising is. They think it's asking strangers for money. And instead, we're loving on our true believers. We're sending love to our true believers. Do y'all say love on somebody like we do in North Carolina? Come over here, I'm going to love on you. Yeah. Board members are really good at that with donors. So this is really an interesting notion, the fundraising cycle. I'm sure you've seen this before. But board members are fascinated by this. And you remember, training them a little bit more about how fundraising works is really a smart move. It'll always protect you a little bit. And first we identify people that we think might be interested, which means we're not talking about strangers. And then we try to warm them up and involve them and cultivate them and get to know them, survey them, all sorts of fun activities in the cultivation arena. And when they're ready, we ask them for support. We don't just blurt out and ask. I'm big on warming up donors. Has anybody seen my articles about how to warm up a donor for the ask? It's one of my favorite things to talk about. And then we go deep, deep, deep into the thank you cycle, the thanking. Why do we focus so much time on thanking? Because it sets up the next ask. A smart organization that falls all over their donors thanking, they don't have to do the other part of the cycle. They go from thanking to asking, thanking to asking. So you save a lot of time and energy. Board members are going, really? Is that how it works? You know, and then if you look at this, you know, how much time and energy do we spend? What color do board members think this whole pie chart is colored? Orange. They think we're the askers. We're fundraising, we're the askers. But instead, it's all this other stuff going on that you can put them to work in these parts of the fundraising cycle. And we know when board members are calling to say thank donors, we know that donors' gifts will go up. Anybody doing thank you phone calls to donors? Oh yeah. Donors' gifts will go up when they get a call from a board member. So that's no ask fundraising for board members. Board members can raise money without having to ask. Yay! Yay! So I'm always looking for finding a role for everybody, because it's not about asking. That's sort of the point I want to make here. And you can have these slides if you want them. So if you give me your business card, I also have a text. You can text to my site and download them today. But let's talk about the second question. The second question, the second story we want board members. Are y'all here with your teams from organizations? Is there an organizational team, or are you by yourself? Some people. I would like for you to either work with your colleagues if you have colleagues with you, but if you're by yourself, just work by yourself, and see if you can make a list of 5 reasons why somebody should give to your nonprofit. Can you make a list of 5 reasons why? We're living in the why, we're not living in the what, okay? And this is really good practice for your board members. Really good practice. I want to hear from a few people reasons why somebody should give to your organization. I'm going to start with this table. Can you give me one reason?
Okay.
Okay, everybody. Yoo-hoo.
I know this isn't probably etiquette, but we're known as the Get Shit Done organization.
No, I love it.
We don't
I love it.
talk about doing things, we actually do things.
All right, so that's one reason why you don't talk about doing things, they actually do things. Love it. That's a great reason why somebody should give money. How about this table? Give me a reason why somebody should give.
Just save someone's life.
Save someone's life?
Yes.
What do you think? Pretty good? Save someone's life? Love it. Back here? Why should somebody, yeah?
Because we can change the trajectory of children's lives.
We can change the trajectory of children's lives. We can change how they grow up to be. Oh. Oh. How about back here? One reason.
Yeah, change lives of people in Haiti.
Change lives of people in Haiti.
That's where we work.
Yeah. Yeah.
We're from Montgomery, so we tell people you can make an impact on the Montgomery public school system. So we're actively working with the school system.
You know, the only thing about making an impact on Montgomery school system is it's a little vague.
A little vague.
Uh-huh. How do y'all, tell me how, if I'm a donor, how can I help impact? How can
we mobilize churches to specifically partner with one church. A church partners with a school. They go in, they can mentor children, they're meeting teachers, and as teachers share needs, the churches are meeting those specific needs.
I love that. Yeah, I love that. And then also helping the lives in Haiti. Can you give me a specific? Your gift, Gail, your gift can
We provide clean water
help bring clean water to
the people who do not have clean water.
To people who desperately need decent water to drink.
We provide toilets for people who do not even have outdoor toilets.
We provide toilet. My gift can help provide a toilet. And why is that important?
Because,
all right, why?
Because when you use the bathroom just out in the bush, when it rains, and the water gets back into the well, into the water system, and then the water system.
We need toilets in Haiti so we can keep our water system clean so people can be healthy.
Exactly.
Okay, great.
We also do agriculture.
All right, but that's all you need is one thing.
Okay.
Okay. and let's talk about the church. Why are we bringing churches together in the school system, so what?
I had probably 6 things pop in my head. I had to
I know
sort
her
through which one
baby
to
kept
say.
her up last night. We should not be picking her. But you know, the whole idea of so what is useful. It's useful when you're trying to really articulate this. Yes.
I mean, everyone in Montgomery will tell you that our public school system is probably our biggest need. It's where we're hurting the most. And so the church is mobilizing. It's boots on the ground in the schools, hearing what teachers need, because it is such a big job. And so we're here, like, we need copy paper.
Yeah.
So a church.
And so, but let's
does
talk
that.
about
What does that
the impact, the why. So when we bring a church together with a school, we have boots on the ground. Teachers have what they need to teach. Increases teacher morale, and students have what they need to learn. You might want to write that down too. Write it down, write it down. Okay, over here, one reason.
We're addressing the full spectrum of poverty from 6 months old till for the lifetime.
Okay, well, let's unpack that some. Instead of undressing the full spectrum of poverty, what else can we say? Full spectrum is a hard word. You know, you want to use 5th grader words when you're doing fundraising writing. So tell me a little bit more about what y'all do.
So we provide vision care for children, or vision screenings,
I love that.
evolves into vision care for kids 6 months to 5 years old. We do tax prep for low-income families, and we run a debate league for middle school and high schoolers.
Oh gosh, so my gift can help a young kid see so that they can learn and not fall back in school. Love it. So see, you can be that simple. 3 bullets. You know, your gift can blankety blankety blank, and in terms of the debate team, help equip middle schoolers with what? What would debating?
Research skills, public speaking.
Build confidence. You know, remember the why and the impact. Build confidence, and see themselves as powerful leaders in the world. On a debate team, don't y'all think a debate team? Cool. Yeah. Over here, one reason why somebody should give.
Well, we give supplies, aid, and hope to victims of disaster in the
You're
multifamily
busy,
housing
aren't you?
industry.
She gives supplies, aid, and hope to victims of disaster. So if I make a gift, I can
Provide them with a disaster recovery kit and the hope that everything will be okay.
So I can give somebody a disaster recovery kit. So I can bring a helping hand to those who have lost everything in a disaster. So you might want to use the disaster recovery kit. Doesn't have a lot of emotion in it, so you might want to think about that in terms of, you know, I'm picking on everybody, but is it helpful? Is what I'm saying helpful? Yeah, because you know, I tell you what, we fall into our jargon. You know, the trajectory, you know, and things like that. We're so used to saying it. Save a life. That's still a little bit vague, you know, as beautiful as it is, being able to hone a sentence or two about what donors can do with their money is a great thing for board members to practice as well. Can you imagine what it's like for board members to write down these 5 reasons? I was doing a board retreat with a medical system in Fayetteville, North Carolina, and I was having board members stand up at each table and share one reason why somebody should give to our hospital foundation, and it was juicy. Because the board members were telling each other why it was so important, and I wasn't picking on their words either. I was like, yeah. And I went over to the development director of the hospital foundation and I said, is there capacity in this room? And she said, oh yeah. And I said, oh good, we're nailing it tonight. So you see, can you see the power of having people with capacity tell each other why people should be giving? They're talking themselves into it too. And it's like peer. I mean, it can be really powerful. And I miss this table. Somebody from this table. Why? All right.
Our ministry gives respite to people with Alzheimer's, but we inspire hope and purpose through volunteer relationships.
I bet you've said that in a lot of letters, haven't you? Inspire hope and purpose.
We do, because
So my gift is going to bring a helping hand. You know, that's a little metaphor. It might be a boring metaphor, but it's going to give somebody with Alzheimer's hope.
Caregiver.
Oh, the caregiver.
Also.
Yeah. My gift is going to bring aid and comfort to an Alzheimer's family. Is that?
No,
No.
it really brings people with Alzheimer's back into the world.
Oh, now we're talking. Now we're talking. Isn't that interesting? Are you, Tricia? Are you the board member? Are you the board member?
She's yeah, they don't listen to me, but I am the board member.
I'll tell y'all, board members are better at this than we are. They're better at this than we are. Because somehow they knock it up a couple of levels. Remember I said about TMI? Board members don't have too much information.
I think y'all have a twofold, 'cause like I talked to Charlotte when we were introducing, and I mean, I've got personal experience with that from a Parkinson's side. But the twofold is you're offering that hope to the Alzheimer's patients themselves, but the bigger thing is the caregiver gets a break. Because
And we know what stress that is. Yeah,
and
it's horrible.
if you can give a caregiver time away to just go do whatever
Yeah.
they want to do.
See,
Yeah.
that's double bang for your buck.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, you're helping the
Yeah.
patient, but you're also helping the caregiver.
Okay, I want to say just another point about what we're doing right now. Remember when I told y'all to write down those emotions that people felt when they gave to a favorite cause? You remember? Powerful, committed. A lot of things we're saying in fundraising today is that you want to you want to be all about the donor when you write these letters, like you can blankety blank. Mrs. Smith, because of your gifts, we know how committed you are, and we know that you want to make a powerful gift. You know, you use these words in describing the donors when they're in their relationship with you. Play around with some of those words, because that's how you can make it really powerfully donor-centered. A lot of people say you're supposed to use the word you in your appeal letter more than you use the word we. You know, take the red pen and circle how many yous you have in the letter and go back to the drawing board, because you got to give the donor a reason to read it, and they're not going to read it unless it's about them. So if you can figure out a way to say nice things to them about themselves, they'll keep reading. Does that make sense? Does that make sense? So what do you think? Could you use this exercise with your board members? It'd be more like a board retreat kind of thing. I don't know if you can break these exercises up and do them one before every board meeting. Maybe you can. You have to get them in a certain mode, you know, in order to do this kind of creative stuff. And who has a board meeting around a big formal conference table? You got to watch out for that. Why would I say that? The setup of the room has more to do with the outcome of the meeting than you can imagine. I always insist on small tables. There ain't going to be no 5th grade setup with teacher-student here in these, or it's certainly not going to be a round table. And I'm a professional mover around of furniture, being with all the training I do. You know, and I go in and, you know, they're all buttoned up. They want to have their conference room. It's deadly to try to shift people into a different mindset. They're going to put on their formal hat when they sit around that conference room, and they're going to slide into the Egyptian statue mode. Just a little hot tip. Let's see if this is going to move. Okay, now I want to talk about my third story I want board members to tell. And I want to think, I'm going to be looking for a volunteer for me to interview. So think about whether you want me to interview you or not while I set this up. The thing is that, I don't know if you can see this, board members don't know where the money goes. They do not know where the money goes. You give them budgets upon budgets, and if I ask, I'm in a board retreat and I'll ask board members, what is our annual budget? And they're going to look at the staff for the answer. They don't know their annual budget. And that's perfect. I mean, why should they? They may not really know. You know, and then I'll say to the board members, how much of that budget do we have to raise every year? They don't know that question either. Yes, ma'am.
Should board
I like these major questions that they don't know. And I have a reason for doing it, because I want them to know how much money we need and what it goes for, because they don't know. So I'm going to show you where I'm going with this in a minute when I interview some lucky person who wants to volunteer. But this is a really old pie chart, but these are your board members have got to have a very few statistics that you share with them over and over so they'll remember them, you know. And, you know, infographics are great. Not everybody learns with words or orally, you know. People are trying to put this stuff in pictures. But the whole idea about what are we raising money for is really interesting. It's like, where's the money going to go when we raise it? Why does it cost so much? You know, I was interviewing some people at Boys and Girls Clubs, and it turned out that they pay a fortune for insurance. Board members say, why do we have to pay so much? Why does it cost so much staff insurance and training? Well, duh, they're working with kids, you know. And all of a sudden, the board members understood why this insurance charge was so high. And they could talk about it in a way that made sense. They could go out and say to their friends, hey, did you know that our personnel costs are high because those kids get all this extra attention, and we got to have the insurance and the training to be sure everybody's safe? And their friends would go, oh, okay, yeah, I get it. So it's interesting when you can start here, you can give your board members some detail for examples that they can share with their buddies, and that's what we're after. And I like to do this in like a discussion. Lots of times I'll take the executive director and the head fundraising person and me, and we'll sit down and we'll sort of play Oprah. And I'll just ask questions, you know, just softball questions about where the money goes and what we need. And let me tell you an example. I was doing this big hospital in Montreal. And Montreal, they had to vet me a lot. They thought I might be too Southern, you know, I don't know. But anyway, they liked me in Montreal. So I was interviewing the CEO, very big time crowd, very hoity-toity. CEO says, listen, they know these numbers. You don't need to interview me. And I said, spare me. I said, humor me. And so we sat down, and I'm asking these questions, and I'm asking him, why do we need private contributions anyway? Well, it turns out, anybody in medicine or a hospital or anything like that, it turns out that the $2 million they get in private contributions every year did this and this and this and this, and board members are sitting on the edge of their seats going, really? And they're asking the CEO these questions, and then I hit a home run. I asked the CEO, what do you really need that you don't have? And remember, I want you to see the setup of this is key because it's Q&A. It's not like him making a presentation saying blah, blah, blah. It's different. It's the setup interview. I said, what do you need that you don't have? And he said, we need this $1 million piece of equipment. And I said, well, why do we need that? You know, I'm always asking why, right? And he said, well, you know, we have to ambulance patients across town for these tests. And it's not a good way to run a hospital. Board members are sitting just bored. Sometimes, have you ever been in sometimes you feel the energy in the room where everybody's so connected and they're asking all these questions. It was one of those moments you could cut the energy with a knife in that room. And then we took a break. Guess what happened at the break? Somebody walks up to the CEO and says, I think I know where we can get that $1 million. So when you make it real, board members are not thinking in terms of money, they're thinking of what we need. Does that make sense? So this kind of conversation I'm going to have with some lucky volunteer in a minute is going to present your budget in a way that board members can actually understand it. And we're not going to go into every part of your budget, we're just going to take one little tiny piece and talk about it. And it's the why do we have to spend money here and why do we need it? You know, it could be that y'all need a new roof. And I would go, well, why? It's not like the executive director presenting why we need a new roof. It's just different. But if you've got somebody with the Q&A, and they said, well, you know, the new roof, we got leak here and leak here. And I said, really? How bad is, what kind of shape is the roof in, you know? And we're making it very rich and real. And then sure enough, one of the board members is going to have a buddy who's a roofer. You wait and see. Or a paver if you need your parking lot paved. Or if you need to build an addition. Or sometimes if you need a new home. So it's a powerful thing. So I want to know, wait a minute. This is kind of the questions. I want to know, I want to volunteer. Who wants to be a volunteer? Who wants to be a volunteer? I'm going to be easy on you, I promise. Be a volunteer, Elizabeth? Elizabeth, come on. All right. So Elizabeth, tell me about your organization in 2 sentences.
Okay, so
because we're not going to talk about your mission all day, but just a little bit. Introduction.
Board member for the James M. Berry Center. We're a child advocacy center.
All right,
in
slow
Etowah
down,
County.
slow down.
The
If I may.
James M. Berry Center. Yeah. So we are the James M. Berry Center. It's a child advocacy center in Etowah County. And so what we do is we interview children that have gone through or either personally witnessed or personally experienced a violent act, whether it's sexual abuse, they've witnessed a murder, whatever. And if their testimony is going to be needed in a courtroom setting, we do the interviews there so that the child does not have to go to the courtroom.
Wow, bless you.
Yeah.
Wow.
So,
wow. And so, first question, how big is your budget?
our budget is about $550,000 a year.
Okay. And see, I say, and this is what I do in a board retreat. I say, how big's your budget? Board members are thinking, how big is our budget? No, but it's the Q&A part that makes them think. And then $550,000, how much of that do you have to raise every year?
All of it. Well, we do it through grants. We get part from the United Way. We're a United Way agency, but a lot of it is a DECA grant.
A what grant?
The ADECA grant. Don't ask me what ADECA
Government?
stands for. Yes. It's,
Okay.
I just know that our executive director spends hours and hours and hours and hours putting together all the information for that grant.
Bless
and
his or
that's
her
where
heart.
the majority of our money comes from, is from the ADECA grant.
Mm-hmm. Interesting.
So, yes.
I have somebody who specializes in federal grants. I can, if you want to farm that out.
Yes. Yeah.
Executive director probably has better things to do.
No, and that is something that we've discussed, is that
I have
if
a
we could have somebody
reference
that
in
did
there.
that, that would free our executive director up to actually go out into the community and.
There's an opportunity cost, a wonderful concept, right? The opportunity cost of the ED having to spend all of his or her time on this detail rather than being out communicating in the very intricate. But let's talk about, so of the $550,000, how much money do you have to bust your butt to raise every year? This is a key question. Board members really want to know, how much do we have to bust our butt? If you take away the ADESA grant.
Oh gosh, well, considering that's the majority of our budget, we have 3 major fundraisers, and
how 100,000 you have to?
Yeah, I would say. Yeah.
All right. So what difference does that 100,000 make?
Well, the difference that it makes is that what we need, tell me your question of what do we need?
Yeah.
We need more full-time counseling staff, because we interviewed 350 children last year, and we have 1 full-time, 1 part-time counseling staff member.
Did you have to turn children away?
No, but it was very stressful, because we won't turn children away, but it's where the backlog comes is all of the paperwork that's involved with
Yeah, I'm
dealing with
sure.
it. Yeah,
I'm
and not only do we do the initial interview, but we also provide ongoing counseling to that child and the family members to walk them through this traumatic event that they have either experienced or witnessed.
So how come if you're not turning anybody away, I have a feeling your staff is working impossible hours?
Yes, yes.
Are they paid?
Including our executive director.
Are they paid? Are y'all paid decently?
Yes.
You
Yeah,
are.
we do. I mean, and that, but we need, and it costs money to have good trained staff to do what we do.
Funny about that, isn't it?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But the whole idea of staff working, how many hours is everybody working? Is it sustainable?
Probably not.
It's not. It's not sustainable.
Mhm.
That's one thing. You can work your staff to the bone for short periods of time, but you can't do it for the long run.
Mhm.
They'll leave.
Yeah.
They'll find it, it might be they got another job or their mama's sick or something, but they'll leave. Because it's not, and I say to boards all the time, don't carry out your mission on the backs of your employees. How about that one?
Yeah.
Don't carry out your mission on the backs of your employees. You owe it to them to give them a good working environment, a decent income, and not to have completely unrealistic expectations that would drive anybody crazy.
Right. Yeah, so one of the things we've added is benefits. I mean, we're, offering.
What do you know? They're
health
offering
insurance
benefits.
and retirement benefits.
Wow.
To our
Yeah.
employees as a way to keep the good employees.
Yeah. So looking at these questions, excuse me, I'm behind you. Yeah. This is kind of the direction I would go in this kind of conversation. What have y'all learned so far? Have y'all learned some interesting stuff so far? Do you see how I'm drilling down in certain areas about why is this happening? It's always the why, or why, if I'm going to be dressed up in my English. Why does it take so much staff to do this kind of work?
Because when you interview 350 kids a year and provide ongoing counseling, that's a lot of hours.
How many
and
hours
work.
per kid? Wow.
Yeah.
It's a lot.
Yeah, it is.
Wow. You still standing? You're okay? Smiling? Okay. And so, it's really great if you can figure out how much it costs per kid.
Oh, wow. That would be good.
I mean, it's really great. And that's full indirect costs, my friends, not direct costs. Full costs per kid. How many kids y'all doing? 350?
350 last year.
That's a lot of kids, a lot of paperwork.
A lot of paperwork.
Yeah. So what else do you really need that you don't have?
More staff.
More staff to do what?
We need more counselors.
And if you had more counselors, what could you do?
We could spread the love of interviewing the kids.
Could you expand?
Yes.
You could help more kids?
Yes, and help more families.
Help more kids and help more families. But you don't have a sense of how many people you're turning away.
I probably don't know the answer to that.
But that's a useful thing to know.
Yeah, it would be.
Absolutely. Backlog. Anybody got a backlog? Who's got a backlog? Tell me about your backlog.
So we're a nonprofit and we serve those struggling with infertility, loss, and miscarriage.
Ooh.
And through our faith-based curriculums, we are just locally in the Birmingham area, but we have had people in Tennessee, Georgia,
Oh.
Florida,
Other cities in
other
Alabama.
cities in Alabama who seek our curriculum, but we have to say we're believing for funding and we're going to get it to you as soon as possible.
I talk about that ad nauseum to my board members. I'd bring stories. For example, we had to turn away this blankety blankety blank, and there was nowhere else for this lady to turn to. Also studied, the latest studies on women's giving shows that women's giving really focuses on women's issues more than you might think. So that's hot tip. But let's go back in terms about what else do we need. So if we could get more counselors, first of all, then that would allow us to have a decent work expectations of the people we have and give them a better quality of work life and life, right? And if we have more counselors, we could help more children because we could do some outreach. And if we help more children, then let's talk about this, everybody. I hadn't even touched on this. If we can help more children, what will happen?
Well, our main goal, you asked about why should people donate, is I feel like that if we can break the cycle of violence, I mean, if you take a child that has experienced this, teach them the right, appropriate ways, and counsel them through, then eventually maybe we can break some of these cycles.
Because these children are going to act out in the same way they've seen their parents act out.
Yes.
And that's what you haven't really said out loud.
Exactly. We've got to. I mean, that's the biggest thing is breaking the cycle of violence.
The problem with breaking the cycle is that it's used so widely that it's become pat, or just it doesn't have any impact anymore. Be fun to have a contest to see how we can come up with a better way to say it. What would you do if you had an additional 100,000? Great question at the bottom. What would you do if you had an additional 100,000? What would y'all do?
We would probably hire somebody to take care of writing our grants for us.
Woohoo! And then that would what?
That would free up the executive director to go do all the things that she needs to do.
And what does she need to do that she's not doing?
She needs to be out in the community more.
Why?
Telling the story. Making people aware of exactly what we do. And we would probably hire another counselor.
Yeah, so that we could
help more children.
Yeah.
And help more families.
But see, you see where I'm doing with I'm taking everything to the impact and everything to the why. And like when I was going around talking, y'all gave me your reason somebody should give. I was pumping it up to make it more powerful and bigger. So that's the goal of this discussion is to give your board members some meat to talk about. And then all of a sudden fundraising is not about money. We're trying to raise another $100,000 for y'all so that we can get more children out there and we can get more people helped. So the children are not going to be repeating this cycle over and over and over with generations to come. That's all they need to say. We're trying to raise another $100,000 a year. And we want it committed every year, right? We don't want it one time, right?
Exactly.
Right.
Yes.
All right, well, let's give Elizabeth a hand. So, what are your impressions about this question for board members? What are your impressions?
I really like the qualitative number 6 about how much does it cost per person help. Because that's really my biggest thing when I'm writing a thank you note is your amount of this amount was able to help this many kids hear about Jesus. And that's really, that's a big one for me with board members.
Donors love that. Donors love that. They love it.
I like how you said that these statements lead you to the actual impact. You've highlighted how soliciting and fundraising are all these but it makes it such an easier conversation. I mean, money does have to be a part of the conversation somewhere, but you're just changing the paradigm around it and showing what's being accomplished in a really powerful way.
Yeah. Somebody else over on this side of the room, impressions about this whole story to teach board members. You got to teach them listening skills. Remember I was talking earlier about getting trapped in a conversation? It's really fun to have this kind of conversation with board members about what do we do when we have a chance to talk to a donor? What do we do? And one of the challenges with teaching board members all these things to say, we have to couple it with listening skills. We have to remind them. I mean, I do a whole workshop on questions to ask donors, power questions to ask donors, But here's just a touch on it. So remind board members when you're teaching them the storytelling stuff that they also want to pull out from the donor what the donor's interested in. And remind them the donor needs to talk 50% of the time. Very key, And, I've used this over and over. What are your impressions? I wonder how many times have I used this today? A lot. I've raised so much money with this question. I say, Mr. Jones, what are your impressions of our organization? Or we were having a seafood festival and we were selling, it was a huge event on the coast and we were selling $100,000 corporate sponsorships. And we had a donor who was nibbling at $100,000 sponsorship, but he wouldn't sign the dotted line. Anybody ever had somebody like that? And so we were having a barbecue cookout. And, you go down the list, you get your barbecue, your slaw, your hush puppies, and then you sit down. Well, lo and behold, his name was Vic Flo. He was the Lexus dealer for North Carolina. There he was sitting there having a lunch by himself. And I went right over there and I said, Mr. Flo, I'm Gail Perry. I'm the fundraising consultant on this project. Can I have lunch with you? And he said, yeah, honey, sit down, let's have some barbecue. So we're sitting down, we're eating our barbecue, and I said, Mr. Flo, can I ask you for some advice? I said, I know you're talking to us about a sponsorship, and I would like to know how should we present this sponsorship so the businesses in North Carolina are going to want to do it? He said, well, I'll tell you what, honey, I like everything I'm seeing, but you don't have a good business plan. Beep, 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 beep. And I said, well, Mr. Flo, tell me about the business plan. What should be in the business plan? And I took a paper napkin and a pen out of my purse. I got an MBA, okay? I can write a freaking business plan. But I want to know what he thought it needed to be in it. And I said, he said, well, I think you need to do this and this and this. And I'm writing down his words. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Eating my banana pudding with him at this point. And, and I'm thinking, I just earned my consulting fee today. So went back to my B&B. I put together a 2-page outline business plan using his words. We called on him the next day. We closed the gift. And he was thrilled. And I'm going, yes! And so this whole idea of feedback, what are your impressions, and then the advice thing, very powerful tools to teach board members. Very powerful. You've heard if you want money, ask for advice. If you want advice, ask for money. Oh, yeah. Especially when you're dealing with the bigger donors, you know. And so, you know, here are just some of my I'm a fundraising consultant. I ask these questions to donors all day long, and the staff is afraid to ask them. You can get right out there and you can say, how can we pull this off? We need to raise another $100,000 a year for this organization. We need to figure out how we can fund the expansion of our work. What do you think we should do, Mr. Philanthropist? You see? What do y'all think? I get very enthusiastic about this stuff, you know. But this is the easy way to raise money. I kid you not. The easy way to raise money. So this is one of my greatest successes. I have a major gift coaching program, and these people heard my presentation on advice visits, and they threw out their presentation and decided to go ask their #1 donor for input on their business plan. Walked out with a $1.5 million gift. She called me, she said, what do we do now? We've got a challenge gift. Oh no. We figured it out. Isn't that cool? Very powerful. And you know, teaching this stuff to board members is so important. That helps them understand that they're not doing all the talking. So now, story number 4. And this is sort of a fun one. Your board members need to be able to have one little tiny story about your organization's work that's very specific. Like, for example, you can make up a little story about this. Little Johnny woke up Monday morning hungry again. You know, there was this kid and we didn't have enough money to give his mama some milk. That's a killer story about your organization. So, I want you to think about this. How can you help board members come up with there was this kid, lady, family, patient, caregiver, cancer survivor, who blankety blankety blank. And we helped them. Or we couldn't help them. So turn to the person next to you and see what you can come up with. There was this. Can you come up with something? Let's come back together. Anybody got a story? Anybody got a story? There was this, blankety blankety blank. There was this. Oh, come on. Yeah. Okay. Dawn, this is Dawn.
Dawn, yes.
There was this.
So there was this woman named Glenda, and we teach, we have classes that teach low cost and no cost ways to save money on utility bills.
Great.
And Glenda had a $250 a month utility bill just living on Social Security.
Wow.
But she had been scammed in the past by a window installer, and so she came to our class a little skeptical, wasn't really sure what we were about. And so she came, she got her energy savings kit and her tip sheet. Her nephew came over and helped her install the equipment, like light bulbs and weather stripping.
Wonderful.
Her next bill was $87. And so
she went from $250 to $87 with your help a month?
Yes. And so she came to the next workshop and she raved about it and told all her neighbors. And then she got involved in the neighborhood association. So she would start recruiting people to do stuff around her neighborhood. But the kicker was she used her savings to keep her gas tank full so she could take her neighbors to doctor's appointments or to the grocery store.
Oh, wow. Wow. That's a pretty good there was this, wasn't it? Good. Hey, let's give Dawn a hand. It might be a little long for board members, but it's a great story. Or and, I don't like but. And it's a great story. All right, somebody else. One more. There was this. We're just going to have some fun. It's okay. All right, I'll let y'all off the hook. But you see what I'm doing? See what I'm doing? So, what if your board members? Oh, and by the way, when you get staffers to chat with board members about their work, that gives board members something to say. You know, studies show that board members want to get to know your program staff and hear them. So, you know, if you want to make something interesting for board members, get your staffers to come in and chat. But don't let them do a presentation. Let it be a Q&A kind of thing. You see the difference about approaching the board meeting more informally? Yeah. So our last question, and we're going to wrap up with this one, is a story of vision and possibility. Wouldn't it be wonderful if, and board members need to be able to say this, you know, wouldn't it be wonderful if we could, all the seniors who could save money on utilities can get help? Wouldn't it be wonderful if all the cancer survivors, the 4th stage cancer survivors, can come back to life or whatever? What would you say? How would you say, what wouldn't it be wonderful if? I know, I'm sorry. Never mind. Okay, all right, I'm not going to be mean. Wouldn't it be wonderful if, on this table, wouldn't it be wonderful if?
Wouldn't it be wonderful if we could provide fertility treatments to the families who otherwise couldn't afford it, but just want to be parents?
Oh, does it make you feel good to say that? Yeah.
And her mom is in the room too.
Makes me feel good.
Oh, she's cute. Yeah, yeah. Wouldn't it be wonderful if? On every table. Come on, every table. This is easy.
If we could provide clean water for everyone who lives on the island and like not clean water.
Oh, wouldn't it be wonderful if we could provide clean water for all these people? Notice how I'm using my voice to make what you're saying richer. You know? Just a little, when you're trying to drive home impact, like a preacher. Study the preachers, how they use their voice for emphasis. They're great at it, politicians too. Somebody else, wouldn't it be wonderful if? This table.
If we could provide college scholarships for the students that complete our debate program.
Oh, wouldn't it be wonderful if we could give college scholarships to the wonderful middle schoolers who develop leadership skills in your debate program? Oh, how about you, Edward?
So that was almost mine. Wouldn't it be wonderful if we could provide more scholarships for first generation and low income students?
Oh, so that they could?
So that they can change their lives and change their families' lives and their communities.
Ah, yes. Get me chills here. How about the table back here? Wouldn't it be wonderful if?
Wouldn't it be wonderful if we could, if all our 3rd graders could read on grade level?
Oh, so that?
So that they can fully access an education.
Wow, wow, wow. Wouldn't it be wonderful if, ladies?
It would be wonderful if we could have more instructors in other communities so they could teach our curriculum and help people get out of the cycle of poverty.
Oh boy, wouldn't it be wonderful if we could reach more people to help them give them tools to get out, struggle or climb out of poverty. Love it, love it. Ladies at this table right here, and gentlemen? David?
Wouldn't it be wonderful if we could teach kids their love for sport and get them to take the opportunity into a career?
Ooh. So how are y'all feeling right now with these wouldn't it be wonderful if statements? Don't they feel great? Can you imagine having your board members talk about this with each other? Like everybody stands up and pops up and says there, wouldn't it be wonderful if? You talk about powerful and inspirational. Anybody get a little cold chilly thing going on? It's wonderful. So help board members be able to talk about this. Lots of times, one time I concluded a retreat with a medical foundation of a college, East Carolina University, with this, and it was one of the most powerful moments I've ever seen. You know, when people stand up, and powerful people with capacity stand up and say this. So, yes, wouldn't it be wonderful if we could? Yes, yes, yes. And so, I think that this is how we create a board that is fired up and ready to go. All these skills that I've been teaching you, and we're going to wrap up right now because we've got 4 minutes. And so, I'd like for you, let's wrap up together. What did you hear today that you want to put into action? Or what's your key takeaway from the day, key idea? What did you hear today?
It's not about money.
I'm sorry?
It's not about money.
It's not about money. All right. I want to hear from everybody. Let's do the wrap up together.
I think giving your board to define the why. You know, I mean, why am I on here? Why am I passionate about this? And why do we do what we do?
Isn't that interesting? Yeah. Why? Love it.
Shake up the board meeting agenda.
Shake up that board meeting agenda.
That's absolutely mine. Make it less formal, make it more personal.
It'd be more interesting, wouldn't it? Yeah. And you have more power over the agenda than you think you do. My friend in the back there, what's your key takeaway?
Yeah, just getting your board energized and out there to tell your story and your mission.
And they can do it, couldn't they? We get rid of the F word, they'll do it. Yeah. Everybody, over here?
I thought it was great learning about how, as a board member, I can thank other donors and how that increases, the donor cycle.
So by thanking donors, she can raise more money. Love it. And Talitha? Talitha, what's your key takeaway?
Just educating our board members to the stories that's really going on, because they're not in the thick of things.
Give them more stories. Yeah, love it. David, your key takeaway?
Just making it fun.
Make it fun. Yay. Yay. Macy?
Changing the energy.
Change the energy?
Was really good.
Change the energy. I can't see y'all's name tags very well, so key takeaway?
The why for me.
The why?
Yes.
Yeah? Sherry? Okay. Yeah?
Finding your true believers.
Trying your true believers. Love it. Love it. If you're reading your email, I'm going to call on you in a second. Just want to warn you.
I'm not reading my email. I'm reviewing my notes.
Oh,
Calling me out, and I'm not even doing what you said.
Sorry, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. Oh, that's not nice of me. Key takeaway? See, he's being so thorough, he's looking at all of his notes to find. I'm going to give him a second. Just, Melissa, key takeaway.
When you said the legacy question, like what kind of legacy do you
What kind of legacy you want to leave from the board? Yeah. Yeah.
That's a good one to ask.
Yeah.
Have them think about it.
Lauren, your key takeaway?
Taking on what they said about the why, I'm just thinking of what our appeal letters look like right this second. A lot of what versus why.
Yeah. Yeah, great. Susan?
Oh, I've got to ditch the jargon.
You got to ditch the jargon. Oh. Oh. Ladies and gentlemen here, key takeaway? Savannah?
I'm excited to build more time into our time with our board for them to practice these kind of things. Because I noticed the way my speaking changed as I practiced it. Really?
He's ready to start doing storytelling. And Naomi, you've already shared. And Mr. Haiti?
Yeah.
Key takeaway?
Yeah, because I don't think we're doing a good enough job of presenting our ministry, that we get people involved and be willing to give. Because I've been listing all these things that people, if we had, what went to my mind, these are all first world problems.
Uh-huh.
And everything I deal with is third world problems. And so it's a total different challenge there.
You have to help us understand, what does it mean to have a toilet?
Yeah.
And go back to the basics.
Yeah.
You really do.
He told me they have a 47% mortality rate in children under the age of 5.
Whoa.
That can be solved by $150 worth of water filtration and having.
That's an easy one. That's an easy one. Thank you. Yeah, Jessica, key takeaway?
I thought it was interesting what you were saying about the we language versus the you.
We versus you, yeah. Elizabeth, key takeaway?
I mean, I think I shared just a minute ago, just the whole why.
The why.
And from a board member's perspective, I mean, you've even prompted questions for me to go back to ask, you know, of things that I don't feel like I understand 100%, so that I could then turn around and share that with a donor. But I like too how you discussed talking to the donors, asking their opinion, asking their advice, things like that. That's
engaging.
huge.
It's called engaging with your donors,
Because
right?
people do, they want to share.
They do.
You know, with
They
you.
really do. Yeah.
So that.
So let me have some key takeaways here. Ladies?
I would say we're in like the 5th or 6th year, and we're to the point where the board, I want to inspire more ownership, not top down.
No top down.
They
Boo.
bring original ideas to the meeting because they're really talented. So it's not for them to listen, but not for just them to share, but for them to present a really good idea on their own.
Love it. Let's get more out of your board.
I loved the every board member has a role in being able to define what that is. Stay engaged.
Yeah.
We're really just getting started. We've only had one board meeting with our board.
Yeah.
So I think it's super empowering to be able to take this back as information and give them the ownership to go and tell the story. I mean, imagine having a brand new board and all of this information to present to them.
And also you can start your board off with good habits.
That's what I'm saying.
As opposed to not so good habits. We don't say bad habits, we say not so good habits. Key takeaway, have you shared?
I guess just the biggest takeaway I've gotten is the ability to be able to make your board member be introspective and figure out why they're here. And then they kind of pivot in place, and you want to be there, and you want to draw funding, and you want to tell your story. As opposed to just, I'm present.
That's right. That's so boring to be just simply present, isn't it? Isn't it? Ladies, Charlotte?
You know, I think the power of enthusiasm was something you talked about earlier. And we have a really enthusiastic leader that keeps everybody hyper.
Spark plug.
Spark plug. And you know, I see how that ripples through. And I think to keep maintaining that and to share that with new people as they come in is good.
Great. Thank you. Yeah. Can't see your name tag.
Nikki.
Nikki.
I think our board has just taken some new members, and these new board members all have stories because several of them spouse had been in our program, and they had experienced our love and giving and Daphne's leadership. So I believe that the stories are going to get really good.
Great. Great. And our friends here?
So I love your exercise at the beginning, the message.
The mingle exercise?
Elevator speech, but I would take that as an exercise for my board at the beginning of every meeting. Because I think that sometimes that focuses change.
Yeah.
And why you're there changes.
Yeah.
Because you learn so much more. And I see that as a great tool to keep, I think we all have that negative board member. I know I serve on boards with board members, and I've worked at organizations with board members who come into the room that are just negative. Everything is the worst.
Why can't we do this?
Yeah.
You can't change the world with that kind of energy.
Exactly. So it helps manage that energy level to the positive.
Ooh, I love it. Managing the negative board member. Ooh, that sounds like a blog post.
I think it should be like a whole day discussion.
And y'all can, if y'all want me to write an article that you need written, so you can send to somebody, just send me the topic, because I take requests for blog articles. I want to invite everybody to sign up for my newsletter on Fridays, cheerful newsletter. And a couple of people have asked about the rest of my work. We have a major gift coaching program that runs every year. It starts in February through November. And it's only $4,000. It's very inexpensive, and it's coaching and training, group coaching and training all the way through the year to help you identify your top prospects and develop relationships with them and ask for advice And right now we're in September, so we're getting ready to get asks on the table. And then we also a traditional consulting company with capital campaigns and other fun stuff. So if you need any help, happy to talk to you about how we could help you. But I just want to thank you for being here. Thank you for your leadership. And y'all are not often acknowledged. And may I remember to you that you are on the front line of making this part of the country a better place. You're literally on the front line of saving lives and changing lives. And if it wasn't for you, the work wouldn't be getting done. So thank you. Thank you, thank you, thank you for your leadership, for your heart, for your attention today, for learning and what you're going to go back to your boards and shake things up and change it. So it's just been my pleasure working with you today. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.